Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. I am Heena Gambhir. On Urban Debate at 8 tonight, our focus is the threat faced by a constitutional tenet. Something that is like rodents chewing into the federal fabric of the country. It pertains to the governors and lieutenant governors appointed to each state and union territory in the country. Appointed by the President of India, the guardian of Indian Constitution, as state guardians. The latest in a long history of acrimony is a proposal by Kerala government to centre. The constitutional fathers created the post of governor after long debates in the Constituent Assembly. The Indian Constitution says the primary function of the governor is to preserve, protect and defend the Constitution and the law as incorporated in their oath of office under Article 159 of the Indian Constitution in the administration of the state affairs. Now, governors, viewers, enjoy discretionary powers to be carried out within parameters set by the Constitution. Now, Kerala government wants power to recall a governor, a power that rests with the president, aided by the union government as the appointing authority. Kerala government proposes that states should get a say in picking up governors too. The state government versus governor's tussle ain't that old. Several dozens of times democratically elected state governments have been brought down by centre undemocratically, with the governors acting as co-conspirators. In fact, it all started on 31st of July 1959. The first government to be dismissed was of Communist Chief Minister EMS Namboodirippan. Centre was ruled by Jawaharlal Nehru's Congress Party. Indira Gandhi's government between 1966 and 77 is known to have imposed president's rule at least 39 times in different states across the country. And in the recent past, in many states, mostly ruled by the opposition, have been witnessing a state government versus governor friction-ridden relationship. Now, viewers, Kerala government versus Arif Mohammad Khan is one example. West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee versus Jagdeep Dhankar is another one. Then there's Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin versus R.N. Ravi. Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray versus Bhagat Singh Koshari, the governor of Maharashtra. Now, governors, despite being constitutional heads in states, have been making grossly political statements. There have been differences over inviting a leader to be sworn in as the chief minister, determining the time to prove legislative majority, interference in day-to-day administration. Governors have been taking longer than usual time for clearing bills, even commenting on policies of the state governments. And then there have been several instances of refusal by the state government to give the governors their due, oppose their suggestions and their authority. In fact, actions of some governors face challenges in courts too. Courts have rapped governors on their knuckles for acting as political appointees of central government. So this is not just about what you witnessed in the last few years. In fact, there have been incidents like this in the past too. In the past, governors like Bhuta Singh in Bihar and Sipte Razi in Jharkhand faced serious reprimand from the apex court. In Karnataka, recently in 2018, Governor Vajubhai Vala invited BJP to try and form the government. Undue amount of time was provided. Court set the picture right eventually. Now, why has been an independent constitutional office, the guardian of the constitution in states, facing charges of working at the behest of the centre or furthering the political interest of a government or party? Why are states refusing to walk the line drawn by governors? So let's try and understand. Have governors overreached their brief or are being forced to work as non-entities by states? Should states have a right to recall a governor? Is it time for reform or is it politics at play? These are some of the questions that we'll try and get answered during our debate on Urban Debate this evening. Joining me on the broadcast is Mohan Krishna, spokesperson of the BJP. We have with us Aryama Sundaram, who is a senior advocate, Srijat Panicker, who is a political analyst, joining us. Advocate C.V. Pramod, leader CPIM, is with us, and Aman Pawar, who is spokesperson of the Congress Party, also live with us this evening. Thank you very much, all of you gentlemen, for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. Aryama Sundaram, I want to begin the discussion with you. Firstly, what do you make of the proposal that has been given by the Kerala government? Can the state be given this power to recall the governor constitutionally?
You know, the demand by the state government is nothing more than a sad reflection on the problems which have come in the perception of how constitutional authorities are carrying out their constitutional functions. You see, offices like the president, offices like the governor, what was seen by the forefathers of the Constitution were that these were the statesmen who would guide. You should know that the governor can act only on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers of State. The president can act only on the aid and advice of the cabinet, of the prime minister. The governor is actually a representative of the president in a state. So what is expected is that whether you're having a gubernatorial office or whether you're the president, there is a certain function expected from you in the Constitution. It has placed you at a level above politics. You are to be a statesman. Looked at that way, the Constitution as it stands has the governor as a representative in de facto, representative of the president in the state, has powers of the governor which are similar, not as extensive, of course, but in certain ways are similar to the powers of the president insofar as the center is concerned, the country. Don't forget that India is really a union. We are not a federation, but we're a union, but we have a lot of federal characteristics. So we're not a strict union in that sense of the word. We have federal characteristics, which means you accept state autonomy. This problem is arising now because the state feels that the governor is acting at the behest of the center. And when he's acting at the behest of the center, rather than acting on the aid and advice of the state government, of the chief minister, he's acting on the aid and advice really of the prime minister and the ministers, cabinet there. Now, this is not a new story. We have heard these complaints, if you remember right, when Mrs. Gandhi was the prime minister. The number of times, ministries were dismissed, governors would recommend dissolution. This would go on and on. You would also remember how it came to a pass that after the Janata Party lost and Mrs. Gandhi came back in, she replaced most of the governors. What does that really mean? That the governor is not being treated as an independent person, which is what the Constitution envisaged him to be. So as far back as 50 years old, years ago, the entire independence of the governor had gone, which is why you have the problem you're facing today, with states saying, we want to say in the appointment of the governor, etc. Let me say that is not found in the Constitution. What is being asked for is an amendment of the Constitution. And what scares me is that what is being asked for is not just requires a constitutional amendment, but it reflects that what a state government is really saying is, we don't trust the governor. We don't trust this constitutional functionary. We don't trust this high dignitary who has so much of importance given to his station by our founding fathers. And that is the sad reflection. What is the state is asking for is basically widespread constitutional amendments, which will be necessary. And the foundation for asking this is lack of trust in the independence of the government. And I think this is something one has to very seriously think about.
That's a very... Yes, that's a very important point you've made, sir. It clearly reflects that state governments do not trust the governors. And that's the reason why in my intro I tried to put together what has been the history like as far as these state governments versus governor conflicts are concerned. And you quoted Indira Gandhi as well. 39 times president's rule, in fact, was imposed during her tenure. And that's also very, very significant. Now, Aman Pawar, you're the spokesperson of the Congress party. And we have with us Advocate CP Pramod, leader CPIM. I want to ask both of you gentlemen, Advocate Pramod, to you first. The question is that you're seeking a constitutional amendment with a view that governments, mostly the opposition-ruled states, do not have any faith in the governors that have been appointed. Can you tell us a little bit more? Are governors, acting as political appointees, or we are seeing that, states are not allowing them to do their work properly? What exactly is the problem?
Governor, which has already been pointed out here. So I don't want to go further for that. Because whenever there is an elected government enjoys confidence of the House, definitely the governor has to abide by the aided advice of the state government only. So governor doesn't have any independent power to exercise in the field of administration in the state. So in India, the thing is that as the union government, the ruling parties of the union government, repeatedly trying to undermine the position of the opposition governments which are in power in different states. First of all, it was for the past 50 years, it was Congress who experimented with all these governments, political experiments. Now, the experiment is now being changed into the BJP fold. BJP is also, as you stated in the introductive part, the several states, we are exercising so much of interference by the governors, politically appointed governors. The sad plight of the story is that, see, 163 of the constitutions clearly mandate what the position of the governor is. But unfortunately, our constitution doesn't prescribe any qualification for appointment of a person to be as the governor or the CEO of the state. So unfortunately, these persons are misled of their position, a constitutional position, because every order of the government, the state government, will be issued for and on behalf of the governor or in the name of the governor. So these guys will be under a mistaken impression that the India state government is being run by these persons. So this happens to be the mishap under the constitution we are exercising for the past 60 or 70 years, because Kerala is the first government which experienced the central government's ire with the governor in power, because in 1959, the first elected government immediately after within 2 years of the election, that was the first experience in the whole of country wherein the government has been dismissed by the report of the governor. So these governors are making constantly reports to the central government as if they are the representatives of the union or the agent of the union government, and disregarding the federal principles which envisage in the constitution. So this happens to be the main debate or main subject of the Sarkaria Commission, or even different precedents which is followed by the Supreme Court, etc. So the recalling of the governor, or even recording dissatisfaction on the performance of the governor, is not a new thing to be raised at the time. Presently at Kerala government itself, but it is consistently being there for the last 6 decades.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Aman Pawar, what is your view? Because, there's also another view that maybe the governors are being forced to work as non-entities by states.
See, let me tell you that the governors, they under the constitution, under Article 163, have to work and have to perform as per the aid and advice of the union, of the Council of Ministers. And in the present scenario, the Congress party has been the biggest victim of the misuse of the governor's powers. And every time this happened, we went to the Supreme Court, we got an order, we got our governments restored, be it Uttarakhand, be it Arunachal, be it Karnataka, be it Maharashtra, and so on, even in Rajasthan, the latest one. It is so unfortunate that despite the Supreme Court coming out with a 9 judges bench judgment in the case of S.R. Bomai in 1994, the judgment left, right and center is being violated by the BJP. The law is very clear, and the Supreme Court time and again has reiterated this. The Supreme Court very categorically has said that the executive function is the responsibility of the elected government, and the governor's responsibility is to ensure that the constitutional mandate and the constitutional provisions are to be protected. The governor in no case, in no scenario, intervene into the day-to-day functioning, in the day-to-day executive administrative business of the elected government, because the people of that particular state have elected the government, and the governor is not elected. He is skydropped by the central government. So the governor cannot substitute the decisions of the elected government by his own decisions. Secondly, the very important fact of our democracy is that when an elected government steps in, it has a tenure of 5 years, subject to obviously that they have majority in those 5 years. And they can always, the elected government can always be replaced by the will of the people in the next election. Whereas the governor comes for a fixed tenure. And when he comes for a fixed tenure, surprisingly off late under the BJP rule, they assume themselves to be tyrants and they assume themselves to be in a role of dictators, which the constitution does not permit at all.
Okay.
So this is a very important facet of our constitution, our democracy, and the Supreme Court, time again, as you have seen, be it in Harish Rawat's case, be it in the Nabam Tukhi case, we saw how in Maharashtra, Devendra Fadnavis was administered oath at 5 a.m. in the morning, even though he did not have the majority by misusing the governor's office. In Rajasthan, we saw that our MLAs had to go to the doorstep of the governor, had to go there and protest for the governor's decision to call for an assembly session. The governor has no business to refuse to call for an assembly session. It is for the Council of Ministers, the state legislature, to decide.
So rules are not being followed, and in the recent past, we have seen several such examples as well coming from largely opposition-ruled states. Interesting points you both have made, gentlemen. Let me now go across to Mohan Krishna, spokesperson of the BJP as well, to get a response on the points that you raised. Congress party says it has been the biggest victim, and the other view is that, maybe governors today are behaving as if they are political appointee, and in reality, as per the rules, a governor of any state or an LG of any state is not really answerable to the center for anything. But here it seems that, orders are being taken from the center. That's the sense. Why do we have this perception today, as Mr. Aryama Sundaram mentioned earlier, that states do not trust their governors and hence they want these powers?
Good evening, Heena. It's very interesting to know from the Congress spokesperson's mouth, as well as from the CPI spokesperson's mouth. Mr. Aryama Sundaram has said that they have been appointed by the president. I will continue from there what he said. Governors are the link or the bridge between the center and the state. That is the definition of the government. Coming to the point, people in India, we have come to know more about the governor's execution of power and other things only when Indira Gandhi took drastic decisions. That is, invoking of Article 356, for that only governor is there. That is the kind of a version or a kind of a mentality what the people of India, in India we have in the states. Very interestingly, what that Congress spokesperson was saying, in 77, when the emergency called, there were governments in Rajasthan and the other 4 states. Why Indira Gandhi recalled them, these people. This was shown by the Congress, not by the BJP or anybody there. When in 78, when Janata Party came to power, they
so you are getting inspiration from the Congress party.
Please let me continue. Please. What I'm trying to tell you is, the people across the country, they know that governor is there to invoke Article 356 only. It is not for other reasons. But he is a bridge or a link between the center and the state. Look at the way so many things have happened. I can also quote the way they have quoted Hansraj Bharadwaj giving prosecution go ahead for Mr. Yediyurappa when he was the governor of Karnataka. I can give a number of things. My point here is very simple.
Yediyurappa.
When he is a link and a bridge between the center and the thing, they have gone to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court also said that it is not possible to impeach them. Only president has to take that decision. Coming to the point later, Sarkaria Commission and Punchi Commission, in that also, there were doubts and there were debates earlier also that whether the governor should be there or not. Then it has been cleared in Sarkaria Commission as well as in Punchi Commission that governor is very much required. Look at the way, see, these problems
Sir,
will
you're
arise.
quoting interesting
But
facts
one
from
minute. I'll not
history.
take-
It
I'll
is
not
very
take
good.
minute.
But I
Please
want to
wait.
ask you about the situation, sir, that exists today. Today, why do states have this feeling, as rightly put out by Mr.
coming to
Aryama
that point.
Sundaram,
I'm
why do
coming to that
states have
point,
this
Heena.
feeling that, they do not trust the governors? I don't want to really, focus on what happened in the past because I've given a background. I've given a background to my viewers about, what this entire crisis is all about. I want to
I'm
ask
coming
you
to
about
that
the
point.
situation
I'm coming
that
to
we
that
have
point.
today.
I'm coming to that point, Heena. Look, right from even in the past also, whenever there is some regional parties there in the power, in those places, we had this problem. This is there from the past and today also it is continuing. Probably it is because of the fear of the chief minister, any regional party chief minister or somebody who is other than, who is ruling other than the central party. Now, these parties will have a fear. It is like, the inconsistency. Why is the governor there to take care of the day-to-day affair? And he is a constitutional head. He is not a, he's not a father. He's not a father kind of thing. He's a first citizen of the state and he has to be consulted for everything. For that reason, it's a fear amongst the regional.
But at least you agree that there is a problem.
Especially coming
Fear
to the point
amongst the regional parties, and you agree, Mr. Krishna, that it is a problem. You've at least agreed to the point that there is a problem that needs to be addressed. Interesting. I will come to you again, sir. Aman wanted to respond.
No, please don't tell me like that.
Yeah, I get your point.
Can I make a small intervention?
No, please, 1 second. Just
Aman, 1 second. Aman, 1 second.
Let me continue.
I think that the BJP...
Oh, I don't have that much time. Very quickly, sir. Aman, 1 second. No, let's not make it political, Tutu. Aman, I will give you time to respond. Mohan Krishna, 10 seconds only. Finish your point, then I have to go to Srijat Panicker.
What I am trying to tell you is...
I will come to you, Aman. 1 second.
It is the
10 seconds
insecurity
only,
of
Mohan Krishna.
It is insecurity of the parties, regional parties, or a minor party which is ruling the state. Has got the feeling. It is not the problem of the governor. It has been cleared by the Supreme Court. It has been cleared by the Sarkaria Commission and Punchi Commission. So there is no point in that, discussing about that. Look, the way in which it has been...
So you think that this is not about having any problems with the governor? It's the insecurity, the fear of the regional political parties which are in power in some states. Fair point. Mohan Krishna, got your point. Now, Aman, I'll give you time to respond. Srijat Panicker has been waiting patiently for a very long time. Srijat, now, as Mr. Mohan Krishna was also trying to suggest that, a governor essentially is a link between center and state, but it seems, at least in opposition-ruled states, that a governor is working for the center. And that's the reason why this demand has come today. We all know the kind of friction that today exists between various state governments and the governors of those states. I listed out some of them in the beginning. That's a reality.
Yeah. Mr. Aryama Sundaram spoke about the lack of trust of the state in the governors. But what if that lack of trust is driven by the politics of the ruling party in that state? That is something that we have not addressed. We have always pointed the finger only at the center. What if that problem is caused by the politics of the state? So in the pretext of suggesting amendments to the constitution, the Kerala government is trying to encroach into the powers of not just the governor, but of the president too. And these stem out from the long-standing demand that the governor must abstain from making public opinion. So he has been talking to the media on various factors, which he is not blocked or prevented from based on the constitution. And he has been doing that. So the government does not like that. The ruling party does not like that. So as per the Article 159, based on which the governor is taking his constitutional oath, he has a constitutional obligation towards the well-being of the people of the state also. So if there is a problem, he has to raise a flag. He is free to do that. Now take a look at these clauses and see whether they are non-constitutional or encroaching into the powers of even the president. the government wants to have a stake in the governor's appointment, which is violative of Articles 155 and 157, where the appointing authority is solely the president. He acts on the advice of the union cabinet, and the state government wants to have a piece of that. Now the government wants to limit the discretionary powers of the government, which is again violative of Article 163, which says that the government has discretionary powers in any matter. Now take the example of the time limits that the government proposes for the governor to sign the bills or ordinances, which again is violative of Article 200, where the governor has a right to withhold his assent for various consultations and deliberations regarding an order, bill or ordinance. Now these are all constitutional provisions where there are a lot of powers vested with the president. Now the state is effectively trying to make amendments and to paralyze the position. The government wants to bring in impeachment and removal of the governor, which again is not constitutional and violative of the appointing authority's right to dismiss a person. And the government wants, the governor can in principle continue for as long as he has the pleasure of the president. But now you want to encroach into that also. The government wants a right to recall the governor, which is also unconstitutional. There is no such provision in the constitution. And if at all there is a right to recall, it has to be given to the people also, because the elected representatives should also be recalled if there is a problem that the voters are finding. So basically everything in these proposals violate.
So you've made a very important point in your view, lack of trust due to politics of the state, that this kind of a demand has come. You call it unconstitutional. Let's quickly go across to Aman as well. Aman, Mr. Mohan Krishna feels that it's the fear of the regional political parties who are in power, and then Srijit feels that it's lack of trust due to politics of the state. Quick response, then I'll go across to Aryama Sundaram.
See, this point has been made by the BJP spokesperson as well. And if it is about the insecurity of the political parties, my simple question to them is that why did the Supreme Court every time when we challenge the decision, the actions of the governor, has declared the governor's decisions, the governors appointed by the BJP, illegal, unconstitutional, be it Arunachal, be it Uttarakhand, be it Maharashtra, be it Karnataka, be it Rajasthan. Every time the Supreme Court has said that the governor was not supposed to do what he is doing. He is acting like a puppet of the central government. And those decisions of the Supreme Court,
quick response, Mohan Krishna. 10 seconds only.
Now laid the foundation of the powers that under which the governor is supposed to function under, even though the
very quickly, Mohan Krishna.
Exploiting
under the pretext of constitution, the opposition Congress has got the habit of going to Supreme Court at the midnight nowadays. It was not earlier.
Victorious over there.
Please, I'm not interviewed, please.
But how can you then ignore the decision of the Supreme Court every time, because of a rift between the government and the governor, the matter has reached Supreme Court, sir?
Please, Heena, let me complete. He has intervened, so I just kept quiet. So this has become a habit of the Congress party. Now I will tell you something. This constitution is there right from...
to go to court.
Please, Heena, I cannot talk like this. This is a very good
Aman, let him quickly let him make his point. 10 seconds only. You made your point, Aman. Mohan Krishna, quickly make your point, sir.
Yeah, what I am trying to tell Aman is, look, you have gone to there and you have brought the verdict from the Supreme Court. Supreme Court also felt that the amendment cannot be done. You have gone not for invoking Article 356. Article 356, it is for other reasons, governor's delay or something. That is constitutionally you have gone. But you have gone at the midnight. Try to understand. None of that, at our time, when you were there in power, we have never gone to the Supreme Court seeking, please, I have not intervened.
Okay, gentlemen, both of you, please quiet now. Please, both of you. I've heard your response, Mohan Krishna. Aman, 1 second. Aryama Sundaram, I asked you earlier, can the state be given this power to recall the governor constitutionally? And then you heard the views of political parties here, both for as well as against. Now, I want to ask you, in your opinion, should the states be given this right to recall the governor, given the circumstances that we are in today?
In my frank opinion, no. And I'll tell you why. Like I said earlier, I mean, we can quote Article 159 to Article 163. We can quote what the Constitution says, are the powers of the governor, what the governor can do. Yes, I can quote for you various articles of the president's powers, what a president can do. Yes, but whether it's the president of India, whether it's the governor of a state, it is not a question of the powers they have, but the way they exercise those powers. That is what is important. Now, what happens is, very often, unfortunately, the powers are not exercised by the governors in an impartial manner. There's a feeling that they are being partial, which is why this whole debate has started. Now, if you ask me, and you are going to say the state has the right to recall the governor, etc., you are running a quotient 4 to the whole constitutional framework of what was intended. The governor holds office at the will of the president. He doesn't hold office at the will of the state. He holds office at the will of the president. That is what the Constitution foresees. Now, if you're going to give the state the power, in effect, what you're doing is, if any state government is dissatisfied with the governor and expect them, the governor, to be partial to them. So the same mischief which they're complaining about today, by saying the governor, if they're an opposition state, is partial to the center, to the government to the center, and not to them, and is not impartial, the same problem will happen otherwise. The state government will say, look, unless you're partial to me, I'm going to have you recalled. I mean, it will be absurd. We are really going to then rewrite what the really basic structure of the Constitution is. I'm sorry, I can't subscribe to this, and I don't agree with that at all. What I would hope instead is that governors would exercise the powers. Yes, they have powers. Article 159, 163, 162. They have all the powers. But please exercise your powers as a statesman and exercise it in a manner where it is not only done, but seen to be done, that you are being fair and impartial. If you're able to do that, it's great. If you're not, we're going to have this friction repeatedly. We've had this friction for 50 years. We'll have it for another 50 years. But that does not mean that we then change the entire basis of the Constitution. Rather, let's hope that the governors we have will discharge their functions in a manner which is seen to be impartial, which doesn't cause distress. It doesn't mean they must agree with the state government every time. It doesn't mean they should agree with the union government every time. It means they should look at what is in the interest of the state. And if we have statesmen like that, we won't have the problem. If we don't have statesmen like that, I don't subscribe to amending the Constitution because we don't have statesmen like that, amending the Constitution because states are suspicious. No, that is the basic structure which we cannot amend according to.
Just 20 seconds, Heena, can I come in?
Okay. Advocate CP Pramod. Mohan Krishna, 1 second. Advocate CP Pramod first, then Mohan Krishna, and then Srijat Panicker. Yes. Could you unmute yourself?
Okay. See, the problem is that
Mr.
the
Pramod,
governors...
could you unmute? Yes.
Yes, the governors are not at all using their powers within the constitutional limits or the framework which is envisaged in the Constitution. That exactly is the problem which we are facing for the last 6 decades. So there is no considerable change in that aspect. Governors usually believe that they are the musclemen of the central government, whoever rules therein. Now I heard some opinion that the governors are not allowed to perform their role, etc., their powers, etc. Where is the hindrance for the governor to exercise his powers? No, absolutely not. Because the governor has got a well-defined manner of rights to be exercised upon by him. And it cannot rule the government or the state government over and above the state assembly or even the advice of the council of ministers, etc. Because it has to always to go along with the government only, with the aid and advice of the government, the state government or the council of ministers. So that happens to be the scheme of the Constitution. So governors are nowadays exceeding their rights. Now I heard the opinion of the legal senior counsel here. That is also that's a very good thinking also, because how can a governor be called for within the scheme of the government, etc.? we got several articles in the constitution which went against the state's federal character or even the powers of the government, state governments, which we essentially taken away from the statute book. So this also should have to be met in that fact only, because we cannot go on experimenting with these fellows one after another. That is the issue. We cannot go for experiments, because after all, our constitution is a mechanism.
Mohan Krishna, quick response.
Yeah, my contention to Mr. Pramod is that, he's saying that governor is going unconstitutional. So Supreme Court is giving ruling constitutionally only. You are going to the Supreme Court and you are getting the judgments or the stay for whatever the governor is taking. That means when he is a constitutional head, how can you say that he is taking unconstitutionally?
See, how many of the occasions?
No, please. You can.
There are so many instances.
Please, Mr. Pramod,
so
I
many
did not
instances.
intervene till you complete.
Yeah.
I did not intervene.
There are so many instances wherein the governors are being pulled by the
Don't
Supreme
disturb
Court
me,
itself.
please. Heena, this is not right.
Okay.
See, what I'm
Advocate
trying to
Pramod,
tell
let
you-
him complete his point. Mohan Krishna,
What I'm
go
trying
ahead.
to tell you
Mohan
is,
Krishna, go ahead,
You
please.
call governor as a constitutional head. And now you are saying that he's taking unconstitutional, he's working unconstitutionally. You can quote as Mr. Aryama Sundaram said, you can quote the way you want the articles. The same way as Mr. Aryama Sundaram said, the president also has got, even constitution, you have so many articles. You can interpret the way you want. You are interpreting with the kind of situation where we are today. It's a young India. Young India needs to be taught a good lesson to the future of generation by saying that governors are not here to invoke Article 356. That's what Mr. Modi is doing right now, or the president of the country is doing right now. This is what has to be taught.
But sir, sadly, the feeling among states and the opposition rule states specifically right now is that rule book is not being followed. And, for everything, it's not right to just immediately rush to the Supreme Court middle of the night. And we've seen that happening many times in the last few years. Srijit.
May I have one sentence?
Okay,
One
Srijit.
sentence.
Aryama Sundaram first.
I think you hit the nail on the head. The
Yes, sir.
complaint is that the rule book is not being followed. The answer to that is to ensure that it is being followed, not to amend the rule book. That's the point.
Yeah. Can I respond?
Okay, that's a very
States are
important
asking
point
for us to
you
amend
made.
the rule book.
Srijit Panicker,
Yeah. See, I have
why
a
do
very
you want to
limited
now
and
amend the
specific-
rule book and complicate the matters even further if the rule book is not being followed? Srijit Panicker.
Yeah. See, I have a very limited and specific point. This is, we have to put things into perspective and then analyze. The latest difference of opinion in Kerala between the government and the governor, which resulted in a standoff, was over the pension scheme of the personal staff of ministers. Now, people completing 2 years of service in the personal staff will receive pension for the rest of their lives. So the governor saw a revenue leakage in that, and he raised a red flag because of this flawed pension scheme. He's entitled to flag it. He's entitled to do that because it is covered under Article 159, where he has this constitutional obligation towards the well-being of the people of the state. It is by oath. So what is the problem in that? Therefore, you want to curtail the powers of the governor, and you basically want to paralyze him. And therefore, you want to amend. You have to see why the government is raising these points now. Put these things into perspective, and then you will realize the governor raised an objection to the appointment of a VC. There was a recommendation which the governor said there was a recommendation letter by a minister which was not as per the norms. So all these things were raised, and the governor was basically following the rules, and he actually put the government, their back against the wall. So the government had no other way to run. They had to bring all these things to limit the powers of the governor. That is the context. It is not about the other things that we have discussed in this debate, like the governor behaving giving some undue importance to a party where he was also a previous member of.
Of course, in Kerala, it is a very specific issue that you are raising.
You will understand where this problem stemmed out from. Of course, for Kerala, it is a very
specific issue that you're raising, but the kind of proposal that has gone from Kerala government is for states, across the country, states and union territories across the country, because of the issues that have come up in the last few years.
Yeah, no, everything actually stemmed out from the difference of opinion the state had with the governor, and every time the people, the mandate of the people was with the governor. And that is reflected in the public opinion. That is reflected in the public opinion that is shared through media, through social media. So if there is this flawed pension scheme, then how many people in the public would support it? You need to complete 10 years of minimum service in the government to earn a minimum
Okay.
pension. Whereas you
Advocate
complete 2
Pramod,
years as a
please
minister,
respond to
minister
what
staff,
Srijit
you
has
get it.
said. Are governors being forced to work as non-entities in the state? And if the governors are not seen towing the state government's line, then it is seen as, the governors are actually supporting the center. Governors are actually acting as center's agents in the states. Is that the reason?
To me,
Advocate Pramod, yes.
yes. Here, the allegation my friend Srijat Panicker is addressed because Kerala Governor Arif Mohammad Khan is there for the last 5 years or so here, and the personal staff system is throughout followed in the country also. Now, the position was there when Hari S. Karta, one of the BJP RSS functionary, was sought to be appointed into the governor's secretariat as a political appointment, and thus questions were that's being questioned by the public, general public. Governor annoyed with that. Governor took another position that, see, political appointments are there, they are receiving pension, etc. It's not a new story at all. Only when
What does
this
Article 164
appointment
say?
of BJP,
What does
BJP
Article
spokesman was
164
there
say?
in the governor's secretariat, that is quite unheard of also, because governor's office should be an apolitical one. But when a BJP official office bearer is being sought to be appointed in the governor's office, this question was being raised by the GAD secretary. The governor wanted to sack him first. So that was the standoff which was given. That was the standoff. That was the standoff which was addressed by the governor. So the ultimately
Srijit, one second, let him finish.
Sacked. Then what happened? The governor's speech.
Srijit, now please respond, and Mohan Krishna quickly.
He reluctant to sign on the governor's speech. It's even by making a constitutional impasse. What is this?
Okay, Advocate Pramod, we've got your point. Srijit Panicker, quick response, and Mohan Krishna.
Just 2 points. One, if the appointment of Hari S. Karta was unconstitutional or not as per the rules, why did Chief Minister sign on it? And where is Hari S. Karta now? Is he a member of the governor's staff? Yes, he is. Did the government raise an objection? No. It was actually a secretary. It was actually a secretary who wrote that. Yes. And he is not entitled to advise the governor. Only the Chief Minister and the Council of Ministers are there to aid and advise the Chief Minister. But it was a government secretary.
Mohan Krishna, quickly make your point. Then Aman Pawar.
He was sacked.
I have a point here to say.
Got your point, Srijit.
Mohan
Krishna.
They have the problem today with the two states. What they are facing. One is that CPIM led Kerala government and TMC led West Bengal government. What is happening in West Bengal is known to the world. Okay? Why the central government schemes have not been implemented? Why it has not been given to the people of the state? This has been questioned. The governor, he has got the right to question. See, he is a...
But sir, there is a problem between the government and the governor in Maharashtra also. There is a problem between the governor and the government in Tamil Nadu also.
See, that's what I am saying. See, you have a problem. You have a problem with these three states right now. That is with regard to the need. They want... See, you have to consult the governor before taking any decisions in the assembly or with the cabinet minister. You have a you have a free hand. You can go and sit with him, discuss with him. This is what is there in my mind as the chief minister, and the people of the state want this. The governor might agree also.
So you also believe that this demand is not justified. So you also believe that this demand is not justified, Mohan Krishna, the demand of the Kerala government.
That's what in West Bengal, if you take how many people have been killed? How many people have been killed? Why there was no NHR? Why NHRC entered there? You know the dramas which
Aman Pawar, the question is, how do we solve this issue today? Aman, how do we solve this issue today? Because it's a serious matter, clearly.
I'll give you my straight answer to that. My answer is that in Delhi, you will recall that between 1998 and 2013, when Sheila Dikshit ji was the chief minister, we had the most seamless rule and most seamless relationship between a chief minister and a governor, even though there was a BJP government at the center. I will tell you, and people of Delhi will abide by this, that the maximum progress in Delhi, be it the metro, be it the CNG buses, be it the flyovers, be it the other developments with respect to where the center and the state were to work together, that took place. Because we formed a working relationship. Today, the problem is, please do not intervene.
Mohan Krishna, 1 second. Let him finish his point. Let him finish his point, please. Let him finish his point.
The problem here is that the BJP is so frustrated, is so insecure of losing elections, that be it Delhi, be it Tamil Nadu, be it Maharashtra, Kerala, elsewhere, they are trying to interfere in the day-to-day functioning through the governor's office, and the people of those states are the maximum sufferers because of these acts of the BJP. So please, kindly stop. You have lost elections.
Okay.
Not try to control states through the governor's office, because it's the people who have given mandate to the chief minister and not to the governors.
Okay,
so
Mohan Krishna, quickly finish your point. 10 seconds only. I have very little time left on the debate.
We are ruling in 16 states, and we are going to continue ruling at the center and more states in future also. You are the one, you are losing the elections, but people have shown the doors to you.
The charge, sir, is that you're using governors to ensure you come to power.
Absolutely. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about winning elections. Winning elections. Not by coming to the power. I'm coming. That's what Heena, you have to understand what we are talking exactly. What he's saying is you are losing elections.
I specifically quoted examples from Karnataka, Maharashtra, for a reason only. And, that is the fear among the regional political parties, that today they have no faith in the governors, sir.
In Karnataka, even I have quoted saying that Hansraj Bharadwaj took a decision just on the behest of the complaint from the opposition party, Siddaramaiah and other people.
Yadurappa Lokayukta recommended.
We were there. We have fought.
All right, gentlemen, calm down, please. Calm down. We've heard the political parties here on the show. I want to now go across to Mr. Aryama Sundaram for the last word. Sir, one thing is clear, that there is a problem that needs to be addressed. One suggestion has come from the Kerala government side that, states should have the right to recall the governor. You think it's not the right idea because we are trying to change the rule book. So what is your prescription to solve a situation like this? BJP is calling it some sort of insecurity that the regional political parties have. The opposition, however, says that, the governor is not letting them do their job. So what is your prescription, or rather suggestion, to help us solve this crisis?
Look, solving this crisis is almost impossible so long as politics exists. But let me say one thing. You see, there are two areas where you'll find that the governor's importance and role comes to play in a big way, where he can be accused of partisanship. All the examples which you have given have revolved around those areas. And that is that when there is a party which does not have a clear majority, either the question of who will form the government, or if there's a vote of no confidence or a vote of confidence, then to regulate it in a certain way. Frankly, these are the only two places where a governor can actually use his powers to an extent which shows a partiality, and where, as you have seen in the past, the Supreme Court has often interfered. Which, the number one, when there seems to be a doubt as to majority, and there's a vote of confidence to come up, and a government has to be removed, and someone else has to be asked to form government. Equally, when in the elections there's a hung house, and therefore you don't know who has the majority. These are the two places, really, where the governor has always had that power, will continue to have the power, must have that power, and whether you like it or not, politics being politics, he will exercise that power as far as he can in favor of the party to which he may have had an allegiance and which has brought him into his office. That is one. So far as all the other aspects are concerned, a governor can actually possibly be an irritant and nothing more. State governments need not worry about it. Because whatever the bills are, money bill, whatever other bills there are, the governor can return it once, can not have powers more than that, can give us suggestions, and that is all. I think where we can put a prescription on this to ensure that these pinpricks do not become nails in a coffin is to ensure that the governor is given a time limit within which he has to act. What governors are using is this lack of a time limit and therefore sitting on something and not allowing the state government to act. The fact is the state government may give a terrible suggestion. The governor may point out 8 good reasons why this should not be this way but should be in another manner, as he's enjoined to do under the Constitution. But the way our Constitution goes, if after considering what the governor has said, it is once again sent back to the governor has to accede to it, and that is our constitutional framework. And so our constitutional framework allows for a bad government as well as a good government. If it's a bad government, they lose the next election. So that's the way the Constitution and that's the way a democracy functions. So according to me, in all areas where the governor has these powers to send back a bill or a governor has a power to question a certain issue, keep a time limit. If there is a time limit given to it, then the governor cannot sit on it, and the Constitution has its own way of ensuring that a decision will have to be implemented as the state government, as the elected government wants. Now, that is one. So far as the question of the partisanship in the case of a hung house or in a case of a no confidence or otherwise is concerned, well, you will find practically that will happen. Unfortunately, we have the Supreme Court, we have the High Court, and they have time and again stepped in where there is some, where it has been dealt with unconstitutionally and stepped in. I don't think we need to amend the Constitution, but I do feel that perhaps a time frame can be brought in for the governor to sit on things. In that case, that pinprick can also stop.
Heena, one point.
Interesting point you've made. I'm completely out of time now. Okay, Srijit, you've been, just 10 seconds, please. I have very little time left now, please.
Okay, this is for all viewers. If the state government appoints, impeaches, removes, recalls, limits the discretionary powers and restricts the time for him for the consultations, he is no longer a governor. Call him a duck. It is a puppet of the state. Call him a duck instead of a governor.
Okay. All right. I appreciate all of you, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate.